Hi, John Kavakis here with another edition of My Take, and this is a special one. You know, I'm a big Brooklyn fan. I'm excited about where they're going and some of the things they have coming down the pike. But being a fan, it's also good to know where they came from. Brooklyn has always had a very dedicated base of passionate collectors. They've kind of moved with them as they've gone through their changes, and that base continues to grow with clubs like the NABCC and the BCC. Well, back in 1992 and 1993, two noted collectors, David Angel and John Hammick, got together and made a series of 3 videos. I've got them right here. And they document the history and the production of Brooklyn, starting with Brooklyn 1, the Pierce Arrow, and going all the way through production in 1993. Well, up until now, those videos have only been available on VHS. You can get them on the secondary market, eBay, and that sort of thing. But with Brooklyn's permission, I've had them digitized, and we're going to present them all here on the channel so that you can take a look at them. Now, there's going to be some surprises in here. You know, the quality could be a little bit better because they've been converted from VHS, but it's perfectly fine. They are engaging, they are entertaining. There are some surprises in here. You'll see the garage that John Hall started the company with, and you're going to find out some really neat stuff, like Brooklyn originally started by making resin, and you'll hear John Hall's reasoning for going to white metal. So my suggestion is that the videos are long, they're about an hour or so. Get yourself a cup of coffee, maybe a cup of tea, and relax, and let's take a stroll through the past. I've got some Earl Grey cream right here. Let's just have a good time looking back and remembering where all this started.
Hello, I'm John Hall. Welcome to our design studios at Brooklyn Models in Bath at the beginning of Volume 3 of the Brooklyn story. I have a guest in the office today, John Hammick, the co-producer of the Brooklyn model videos, and I'd like to show you the model we plan to give you in the package this year. This is a limited edition model of a 1959 Chevrolet El Camino pickup truck, very fashionable vehicle of the late 50s. We plan to show you how we produce this model in the factory, and I think we should go back in time to the beginning and see the master, the original, being prepared for production.
The transformation from real car to model starts with the making of a master by either casting or prefabrication. From photographs and drawings of the original, in this case a Chevrolet El Camino from the Angel collection, the master is produced by prefabrication. Using sheets of brass, the model maker sculpts the model by beating, hammering and soldering. It's a time-consuming, skillful process requiring years of training. On completion, the component parts of the master are taken to the mould-making rooms. The flexible nitrile rubber, inherited from the jewellery industry, allows complicated shapes to be used without expensive tooling. Runners and gates are cut into the rubber to allow the metal to flow easily into the cavities. Studs are used to prevent shift between the top and bottom halves of the mould. Using heat and pressure, the rubber is vulcanized over the master. Molds are then put into centrifugal casting machines, the spinning movement producing plenty of energy. Molten white metal is poured into the rotating head of the machine, and the metal rushes into the cavities, freezes, and a short time later, the operator removes the molds, takes them apart, and breaks off the various components. Some centrifugal casting machines are standard ones, inherited from the jewellery industry. Others are purpose-built for Brooklin. These are especially useful for high-volume production of large section bodies and for more accuracy in size and shape, as one of the biggest problems in rubber mold technology is controlling tolerances. At the beginning of the day, both machine and mold will be cold. After several hours, everything heats up, so there are bound to be expansion problems. Depending on the complexity of the mold, some fettling is required, though often some small parts go directly to the paint room or away for plating. Some drilling is also necessary. In the paint room, basic car body painting techniques are utilized. The actual body paint used is very expensive, and several coats are put on the model. A priming coat, the color, and a final clear lacquer. The final coat is to protect the finish and prevent oxidation to ensure a model will still be bright in 10 years' time. Plating and tire manufacture is done by other companies, but windscreens are vacuum formed in the Brooklin factory. Finally, in the assembly area, small parts are hand-painted and the various model parts, here the El Camino, are assembled together. The final word in the production sequence goes to John Hall.
The nature of this business is labour-intensive. The price of a Brooklin model is at least 3 or 4 times that of a mass-produced toy. The main advantage of our business is because of the much lower investment cost to start out, as opposed to die casting, we can produce unusual models. Like, it's very unlikely that any mass producer of toys, say Dinky Toys or Corgi Toys, would produce a model of a sharp-nosed greyhound. The appeal is not wide enough. They need to sell tens of thousands of their models to recoup their investment. We can get away with much less than that.
Volume 1 of the Brooklin collection covered BRK-1, the 1933 Pierce Arrow, to BRK-9, the 1940 Ford sedan delivery. And Volume 2 covered the BRK-10, the 1949 Buick Roadmaster, to BRK-22, the 1958 Edsel Citation. However, missing from Volume 2 was BRK-16A, the 1935 Dodge pickup, and it is with this model that we start the catalogue section of Volume 3. In 1988, the Avon Diecast Club commissioned 75 of these models for their members. It was paired with the Dodge van. The load represents boxes of toys. B.F. Goodrich commissioned 50 of this highly sought-after pickup in dark blue. It had a tire load. In 1984, CTCS, the Canadian Toy Collectors Society, had 400 models in green, produced with crates of toys as the load. One of the crates on each model was engraved, one of 400. This model is also known without decals. 2 years later, CTCS had 450 models produced in yellow. The load was now composed of tyres, with one of the tyres engraved 1 of 450. In 1986, the pickup was used for Canada's Pacific Coast Toy Show held in New Westminster, British Columbia. The model was produced in brown and cream, and 150 were made. Huggett Electrical commissioned 100 models in 1987 of this green pickup with a switchgear panel as load. This attractive model comes with a certificate. In 1986, this orange Dodge pickup was made for the 14th James Lake auction. It had a brown box load, and 150 were made. Ontario's Markham Board of Trade model is finished in blue with a plank load. It comes with a certificate stating 1 of 500. However, only 250 models were made. This attractive model with hose reel and fire extinguisher load was made with Orange County Fire decals. 250 were issued in 1985, and they're highly sought after. Another popular model was the New England Salem telephone and pole truck. Although 400 were made, they're not easy to find. All models came with a pole and transport dolly. 150 models for Yateley Commercial Motors were made for their 25th anniversary in 1985. The load depicted used car parts, and it was paired with the Ford van. The Brasilia Press model in yellow, with boxes of Brooklin models as its load, were first issued in 1990, with a production run of up to 750. In 1990, the Wessex model and toy collectors had 498 models made with a silver key, and 100 models with a gold key. The gold key models each had a numbered certificate. 2 further models were produced for the WMTC charity auction night held in October 1991. One model was auctioned on the night, and the other went to the highest bidder in a postal auction. The bumpers, grille, hubcaps and key were in gold, and the license plates were blue. In 1992, this version of the Dodge was made to raise money for a McDonald Coca-Cola charity benefit. 750 were made. This 1956 Ford Fairlane Victoria model in green was introduced in 1987. As with all Brooklin models, the BRK number is on the license plates, but you'll notice that this first model has a license plate error, 22 instead of 23. It was not changed for some time, but when the error was corrected, the color of the plates was changed to yellow. However, it is known that 20 of these left the factory with the correct BRK number on the license plate, but with the previous orange color. In 1991, a few models appeared in a lighter shade of green. A Code 3 version was made in America in 1987, with an added chrome roof bar and detailed side moldings. Very few of these models are known. This Code 2 model by Mick Cooling had a limited edition of 50. Each model is individually numbered on the base. Produced in Germany by Werner Vitek, this Code 2 model is one of a pair of stock cars driven by Curtis Turner in the 50s. The other model is all white with similar decals. The standard version of the 1968 Shelby Mustang GT 500 was first produced in 1986 in Acapulco blue. A few are known in a darker shade. The dark green Shelby is one of the most sought after of all the Brooklyn specials. Of the 250 produced for a prize in a sweepstake, most fell into the hands of non-Brooklyn collectors, and less than 20 are known in Brooklyn collections worldwide. John Hall expands on this extra special model.
Carroll Shelby was a racing driver, car tuner, car designer. He took the English AC, turned it into the Shelby Cobra, it became a hot car. And he turned his attention to Ford. He had an association with Ford back in the 60s. And designed and built this very successful car, Shelby GT500. Back in '85, we were asked by one of our distributors in the United States to produce 250 for a special promotion over there. He got exclusive rights to sell the Japanese kit of the Shelby GT500. And the first prize in this competition was a full-size GT500. Second prize was some Carroll Shelby signed clothing. And third prize was this Brooklyn model. So we made 250. They were all shipped over there. And we managed to get permission to photo etch Carroll Shelby's signature in the base of this model. And it's only these 250 that have this signature. After a while, because obviously it was too expensive just to produce 250 from one master, it was understood we'd go into production. So we went into production, and I received a cease and desist letter from Carroll Shelby's lawyers saying that no royalties had been paid. Royalties had been paid on this vehicle, on 250 pieces, but not on our regular production. And his demands were so great, so excessive in terms of royalty and part payments and checking invoices and control, that we said, no, we won't do that. So we dropped the model. We produced about 4,000 or 5,000, maybe 3,000, I'm not sure. We certainly got the mileage out of it. And then we deleted the model and turned it into a regular 1968 Ford Mustang. And we have agreements with Ford, so there's no problem. This particular one is very rare. And people say to me, well, 250, in those days, it wasn't so rare. But what people have to understand is this distributor, the main part of his business was ship models, galleons, things like this. So there's a good chance that 60-70% of these models went to people who collected ships and boats, and the model would come to them in the mail as a prize, and they'd give it to their kids, who'd take it to the sandbox and play with it, or in the backyard, or it's put in a drawer somewhere. So there's a reasonable explanation why it is so rare.
As John Hall has just mentioned, because of licensing difficulties, the Shelby was deleted from the range in 1988 and replaced by the Ford Mustang Fastback, seen here in red. In 1989, 250 Code 3 convertibles in pale blue metallic were made in Holland by Model Technique. Soon after, 50 of the same models were produced in black with a red interior. The 1958 Pontiac Bonneville convertible was the second new model for 1987. 35 models were made in black with red interiors. It was then decided to issue the standard model in metallic black with a silver-grey interior. The standard model is now grey-black metallic with a dark or light interior. The first of 5 Code 3s made in America was this black metallic model with pink detail. About 40 of these were produced. The red model with white detailing was also made in a low quantity, about 20, as was the white with red detail. The pistachio detailed black model was an issue of 6, as was the lavender detailed model, making about 90 in total. In 1989, the Pontiac Bonneville was used for the first factory special Indianapolis pace car. 3,000 were made. A limited edition of 500 was produced in 1990 in deep red for Canada's Pacific Coast Toy Show. 2 shades are shown here. The 1955 Chevrolet Nomad was a new model for 1987. The first model produced was for the Canadian Toy Collectors Society's annual toy show in Toronto. 375 models were made in coral and white. Some of these were in dark coral and some had a pink shade. The standard model was issued after the CTCS special, and it was finished in light blue and white. A few pale light blue models have been noted. This hearse in dark silver grey metallic is one of a series of Code 3 models produced by Keith Pillinger of Bristol. 50 were produced in 1989 with gold decals and came complete with coffin. '88 saw the introduction of the van version of the 1955 Chevrolet Nomad. This striking Rock County emergency fire vehicle was the standard production model. It was discontinued in 1992. Also in 1988, 150 models were produced in black for Canada's Pacific Coast Toy Show. A further 150 were produced in dark blue for Cars Only, a model shop in Milton Keynes, England. 2 further versions in black were issued, 71 for the 71st anniversary of Weber's Automobilia store in Fort Worth, Texas, and 200 for Das Automobil of Munich in Germany. The last of the Code 1 specials is this maroon van produced for the Wessex Model and Toy Collectors. It featured the gold key logo of the club and the year of issue on a gold decal on the door. 300 were made. This was the first of the Keith Pillinger Code 3 models, and 100 of this paramedic ambulance were made in white. Another 2 of his models were the County Coroner's Office model in black and the blood transfusion model in blue. 50 of each were produced in 1989. Released in 1988, the 1957 Eldorado Brougham was finished in silver with a maroon interior and blue license plates. A limited edition of 750 in black with gold brightwork was made for Canada's Pacific Coast Toy Show in 1992. This was the 10th year and the last of the series made for the show. 150 were sent out with a special silver box and certificate listing all 10 models produced for them. The 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser was first made for the CTCS in 1988 as a Monarch. 450 were produced. A few models are a much darker blue. In 1989, Brooklin introduced the standard model in desert tan. It clearly shows the twin headlights and a different grille. A very limited number can be found in a pinkish shade. However, the spare wheel cover does not differ. John Hall sheds more light on the differences between the Monarch and the Mercury.
The model on my right is our standard number 28, 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser. And back in 1988, the CTCS came to me, as they always do, and they'd researched and found a Canadian model, a Canadian version of this car. And in Canada, it was marketed by Ford of Canada as a Monarch series of cars. The Mercury name wasn't used. And the basic differences between these cars is the decaling on the side, Monarch as opposed to Mercury. The grille is totally different, and the headlamp configuration is different. The American version has twin pairs of headlamps, while the Canadian version has single headlamps. And it was to do with statutory laws in Canada and the United States. The Canadians figured that a twin headlamp system was too dazzling. So all their cars of that period, and I believe until today, are still a single lamp configuration.
In 1989, the standard version of BRK-29, the 1953 Kaiser Manhattan, was produced in blue with a grey interior. The model was launched at Merley House, and signed certificates came with each model sold on the day. The full-size Kaiser Dragon from the Angel collection, on which the model was based, was in attendance at the launch. Soon after the launch of the standard model, 500 black models for model cars of Rotterdam in Holland were produced, and buyers were presented with a reproduction print of an original Kaiser sales brochure. The full-size Kaisers were assembled in Rotterdam for the European market, and many were finished in black. The model's license plates show the abbreviation of Rotterdam and the year of the car. The other special Kaiser was this yellow taxi made for miniature cars of New Jersey, USA. 750 were produced. First produced in 1990, the 1954 Dodge 500 convertible was finished in yellow with a black top. It was deleted in early 1993. In 1992, the model was produced as a factory special. It was limited to 3,000 pieces, and it carried the 1954 Indianapolis pace car decals. Santa Claus with Christmas tree and sack of toys complement this run of 250 models finished in red for Maidenhead Static Model Club in 1992. This unique model is much sought after. In 1993, the top-up version with 30 on the base was discontinued and replaced with the standard top-down version with a two-tone interior and 30A on the base. Two distinct shades of green are known. The first of the 1953 Pontiac van models was produced in 1989 for the CTCS, and one of 500 was cast on the base. Due to the high demand for this model, a further 100 were issued and the one of 500 omitted from the base. Also in 1989, 500 models were made for the Wessex Model and Toy Collectors Club. They had one of 500 cast on the base. In 1990, 500 models in green were produced with Huggett electrical decals. 100 of these came with a certificate. The same year, the San Francisco Bay Brooklin Club commissioned this version of the van for their members. 200 were produced with the member's number engraved on the base. A further 200 were not numbered. The first of the standard models was produced with Gulf oil decals. The sun visor was added. This livery was discontinued in 1993. Due to an error at the factory, incorrect bases were used, and 300 models had a base with a 1 of 500 casting. These appear in a lighter color. 1990 also saw 500 charity ambulances produced for JM Toys of Waterlooville near Portsmouth. They had 1 of 500 cast on the base and a blue roof light. £7,500 was raised and given to the Lithotripta Appeal and the British Diabetic Association. The first of the Model X series in green metallic was also made in 1990. 500 of these were produced. The second standard Pontiac van had mobile oil decals and a red sun visor. It was issued in 1991. The LaSalle flower van was made for Brasilia Press, Indiana, in 1991, with a production run of 750, but only 550 exist, as 200 were later redecaled. The third standard version of this model was finished in blue with a yellow visor and blue Sunoco decals. It was issued in 1992. This is another Keith Pillinger Code 3. only 34 of this rescue service van were produced. The bright work is in 24-carat gold. The last model in this section is a Code 2 in white, showing Bender's decals. 200 were produced in 1993. These were redeckled LaSalle flower vans. Bender's are part of Brasilia Press. The 5 promotional models of the Pontiac pickup were made in 1991. The first was for Model Garage Redruth Limited in England. 750 were made as a tow truck. A further 750 in black were made for Milano 43, a model shop in Milan, Italy. One of 750 is cast on the base. The Wessex Club model has a barrel load and a signboard with the Ushers logo. The Wessex members meet on the first Monday of every month at the Ushers Club. 350 were produced. The last 2 models were made for the first Brooklyn video and are the only models with the 2 Brooklyn logos. 475 were in silver with a blue tonneau and 25 in beige with a brown tonneau. The 1953 Studebaker Commander Starliner was introduced into the range in 1990. In addition to the very pale green colour, a number are known with a yellow tint. The same year, 750 of this police training vehicle were produced for Brasilia Press. It came with a warning light and sirens. The first model for 1991 was the 1938 Phantom Corsair. It was in black, which was the colour of the original car. John Hall comments on his reasons for choosing this car for a model.
If you think back to volume 2 of the videos, I talked about I'm not interested in 400 cubic inch engines. I'm not interested in Dynaflow transmissions. It's shapes that fascinate me. The creative side of car design. And let's face it, you couldn't get much more of a creative shape than this. This is classic teardrop design, which means when a globule of oil or water is dropped, it takes up a natural form called teardrop styling. We really made this car because of its history. Fascinating story. The car was designed and built by Rust Hines, who was son of the Heinz Baked Beans family, the American industrial giants of that time. Lots of money to indulge in whims and fantasy. He wanted to become a car designer. So he designed this car, built it. It was built on a Cord chassis, the Cord engine, 1938 model. And it got lots of reviews. It was well publicized. This was the time when people were trying different things. Unfortunately, about 3 months after the car was built, Rust Hines was killed in a car crash. The family weren't interested. Nobody took over. And the project was shelved. There's only one surviving example of this car. It's had tremendous history. It's been owned by comedians. It's been owned by gangsters. It's been owned by racing conglomerates. It's changed its shape over the years. But recently it's been restored, and it's with Harrah's Museum in Reno, Nevada. I think it's a wonderful car.
A further 750 in matte beige, which is the colour used for the sales brochure, were made for Minigrid in Ontario. For the second Model X in Solihull near Birmingham, England, 750 models were produced in metallic green. One of 750 was cast on the base. The Nash Ambassador Country Club was the second new model for 1991. It was produced in metallic maroon with a beige interior. A dark maroon version is also known. However, due to an error on the real car used for the design, the badging on the driver's side was incorrectly positioned to the rear of the door. This was later corrected in 1992. Another dark maroon version was noted in 1993, this time with the correct badging. In late 1993, the Nash Ambassador was reworked as the Le Mans Coupe and issued as a standard model. It had more detail and the much-requested two-tone paint finish. John Hall talks about this.
I've been asked about this for a long, long time. Can we get two-toning? And we've tried it with separate castings quite successfully. Not all cars lend themselves to that. So we said we've got to learn masking. We've got to find an economical way to mask the models. And you've seen limited productions in the past that have been masked, but not in volume production. And this is our rework of the Nash. This is number 34A, the two-tone Nash. And I think we've solved it. We're able to produce this at the same price as a single colour model. We've developed a technique of rubber masking. We can produce them in volume. I must say it slows down the paint room, probably by about 40%, but it's a swings and roundabouts operation here. We get faster on some models and slower on others. And I think we've solved it. You notice how we have to pick where the line should be, because this is not a plated brake line. We've decided that's where the line should be, that's where the line should be. And I'm very pleased with the interface there between the yellow and the white, where you can hardly see a fluffy line at all. So I think we've solved it. Not every car will be like this, but we can choose models throughout the year to brighten them up and get a better look on the vehicle. Because two-toning was used not just for colour styling, but to break up the shape of the vehicle.
The Ford Fairlane 500 Skyliner was produced in metallic green for the Canadian Toy Collectors Society 1991 show. 750 were made. The first standard model was in cream with a black interior. This special issue commemorates a rally of over 120 classic cars on the original Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles in 1993. Note the different number plate colours to adhere to the UK road regulations as on the real car. Route 66, probably the most famous highway in the USA, if not the world, is part of American folklore. Even a song was written about it, Get Your Kicks on Route 66. It was written by Bobby Troup, first recorded by Nat King Cole and by many artists since, including the Rolling Stones. Nicknamed the Mother Road by Steinbeck in The Grapes of Wrath, Route 66 doesn't officially exist anymore due to the many changes since the route system started in 1926. Starting in Chicago, the route runs through 8 states. During the 1993 trip, the Skyliner clocked up over 4,600 miles, including excursions. The 1953 Hudson Hornet in green with a pale green interior was the first new model for 1992. The second new model for 1992 was the Ford Sunliner. The colour was lilac metallic with a maroon interior and top. third new model for 1992 was the 1939 Graham Combination Coupe. It was produced in light brown with a tan interior. The light brown was discontinued in 1993 and replaced with a silver grey metallic with grey interior. However, already two distinct versions are known. One, a deep dark grey metallic, the other, a medium grey metallic with a bronze tint. The 1938 Graham convertible in red was one of 25 special conversions by John Roberts, produced with the kind permission of the factory. The convertible was one of the highlights of the 1938 Brussels Motor Show. The model is enhanced by the figure supplied by Oman Miniatures of Horsham in Sussex, England. Also new for 1992 was the 1953 Oldsmobile Fiesta in two-tone white and pale blue. This model has been cleverly designed with the body in two sections of different colours. In 1993, a special limited edition of 1,000 white and red models was produced with top-up. The 1948 Cadillac Dynamic Fastback Coupe was another new model for 1992 in dark blue with a red interior. A box opener in the shape of the early Brooklin logo is supplied with every model. A very deep dark blue version of this model is also known. The 1959 Chrysler 300E convertible in gold bronze was the first new model for 1993. However, just over 200 models appeared in mustard gold, which was the original colour chosen by John Hall. Both light and dark versions of this are known, but let John Hall give more details about this model.
It's one of our eras that's created a collector's dream, an unintentional rare model. When we were producing this model, things were very busy, and I was given two colour samples to check out, and I picked the one on my right, the lime gold colour, and forgot all about it. 3 days later, Jenny came home with the models and said, I think you should look at these again. The guys think the pale gold is a better version. So, yeah, I agree with them. So I said, okay, we'll go for the pale gold colour. Unfortunately, they'd already painted 200 models, and we can't afford to strip those or melt them down or scrap them. You know, we have time, deliveries to meet, and cost involved. So we let them go. And not a word was said to anybody, but by George, within a week, every collector around the world knew that there were 200 funny models from Brooklyn Models out there. Absolutely amazing. So, by error, we've created some fun, but we don't do it intentionally.
This model was used for the 4th Model X International Specialist Model Vehicle Show held in October 1993, organised by Collectors Gazette. The colour is their usual dark metallic green, and 750 were produced. This 1953 Ford F1 panel van was the last new model for 1992. To date, it has only been used for factory specials, the first of which was for Model X92, which was organised by Collectors Gazette. The issue was 750 in number and the colour metallic green. The Model X92 badge was also available at the show. 500 models were made for the CTCS 1992 show in green with the authentic Canada Dry logo. The Wessex model and toy collectors of Trowbridge, Wiltshire, had 250 models produced in maroon. Small Talk is the name of their club magazine. This very attractive ambulance was made in 1993 for the San Francisco Bay Brooklyn Club. The production run was 300. 750 models in yellow were commissioned in 1993 by Mamarco, the main French distributor of Brooklyn models. It had Michelin logos and a Michelin man. A few dark versions exist. The same year, a limited run of 1,000 models in light blue were made with Alka-Seltzer logos. This was a factory special. The Brooklyn Collectors Club chose the 1948 Packard Woody as their members' special in 1993. 400 were made in this attractive metallic green. One of 400 is cast on the base. Note the separate casting of the side and rear wooden panels. Another new model for 1993 was the standard version, finished in white. This special conversion was limited to 25 models. It was finished in coral with a standard interior. Extra wood paneling has been detailed, and the lower half of the tailgate has been opened to reveal luggage and golf clubs. These latter items are from Oman Miniatures. Thanks are due to Brooklyn Models for allowing the creation of this special by John Roberts. A further new model for 1993 was this 1961 Chevrolet Impala in red with a red and white interior. In 1993, the Canadian Toy Collectors Society had the first 500 of the Buick Roadmaster convertibles made for their show in Toronto. Originally, the car was presented to Canadian figure skater Barbara Ann Scott, and a hand-painted model of her by Oman was included with the Buick. The last new model for 1993 was the dark blue metallic version. The 1959 Chevrolet El Camino was the model which accompanies the third volume of the Brooklyn video. There were 450 models in pink and 50 in gold. The car the model was based on is in the Angel collection. Since the launch of the first two videos, several new models with early BRK numbers have been produced. To start this section, we look at a dark blue version of the 1933 Pierce Arrow BRK-1. This was the Brooklyn Collectors Club model for 1992. Rear wheel fender skirts were removed and wire wheels fitted. 500 were made. Also in 1992, 750 of BRK-2, the 1948 Tucker Torpedo, were produced in dark green metallic for the Tucker Club. 150 of these were individually numbered on the base. Since this model was first shown in Volume 1, two distinct shades of the Tucker have been found. 300 Chrysler Airflow models, BRK-7, were made for the San Francisco Bay Brooklyn Club in 1992. It was a fire chief car. One of 300 was cast on the base. Issued in late 1993 as BRK-11A, this was a reworked 1957 Lincoln Continental Mark II in cream. The 1949 Mercury Coupe, BRK-15, in black, was made for the Brooklyn Club Deutschland. Rear window bars were added. One of 200 was cast on the base plate, and 100 of these models came with an Oman-made figure of James Dean, whose car this represents. These models were gloss black, unlike the low-gloss pre-production model shown in Volume 2 of the video series. A limited edition of 3,000 was made of the 1950 Mercury convertible, BRK-15A, as a factory special in 1993. It was the 1950 Indianapolis pace car. The 1958 Edsel Citation convertible was used for the second Brooklyn video in 1993. There were 450 models in white and 50 in black. These are being shown as the correct production version, since the models shown in the video with red seats were pre-production examples. These four 1955 FJ Holdens were made by Brooklyn in 1981 and 1982 for Model Cars of the World, Sydney, Australia. They were limited to 50 models in each colour. The Holden was an American-designed car, but made under license in Australia, hence the special category. For our final catalogue item, let John Hall tell you about the plough.
Back in 1975, the World Plowing Championships were held in Brooklin, Ontario. It was quite an important event for Brooklyn, a population of 3,000 people. All the fields were taken over by farmers from all over the world. And we'd been in business for about a year. I'd been in business for about a year. It was only me. We had a few PS Harrows in production and some early Tuckers. So we thought this could be an opportunity to get some capital together, make some success out of casting. We were good at it. Let's make a souvenir for the World Plowing match. So I got all the kids together in the village after school. They'd drop into the basement of the house. They'd help me cast these things. Ladies along the street would assemble them, glue them, paint them. To save money, we went to the local body shops and collected all their scrapings of lead from body fixing, put those in the melting pot. And in about a short period, about 2 weeks, we made 1,500 to 2,000, I don't recall the actual number, and took them to the show. Set up a nice booth. And we sold one the first day, nothing the second day, a couple the next day. In the period of a week, we got rid of 250 pieces. 50 of those weren't sold. They were swapped for T-shirts and beer mugs, which is what everybody wanted. They didn't want souvenirs. They wanted simple things to take home. And I suppose $6.95 was a lot of money back in 1975. The whole thing was a disaster. So we took them back home. We melted down everything we hadn't sold. They became Tuckers or PS Arrows. But it's a nice story. They're very fragile. They don't travel too well. Out of the 250 that went around, probably there's only, I wouldn't hesitate to guess, maybe 20, 30 left, because they weren't collectible as such. They weren't part of a range. They were very brittle, very fragile.
That ends the formal catalogue section of Volume 3. Included in the 3 volumes are details of over 500 models, including many rare ones. However, if you want to see them in the flesh, then a visit to Merley House and Model Museum will satisfy your curiosity. For most of the Brooklyn collection is on display. In fact, it's the largest collection on public view. Merley House and Model Museum is situated near Wimborne Minster in Dorset. Completed in 1760, the house was designed by a local architect and Ralph Willett, owner of the old manor house. The house has many interesting features for the visitor. The main staircase and several beautiful decorative ceilings are among the highlights. There is a real treat in store for the model enthusiast. There are over 5,000 models of different kinds on display. Over 20,000 visitors every year come to look at the excellent displays, and the wonderful N-gauge railway layout is a major attraction. It is 17 feet in length and took some 2,300 hours to build, with over 1,250 hand-painted figures placed around it. Built by John Wiley, it's a focal point of attention for children. There are 3 specialist Brooklyn clubs. The first of which is the San Francisco Bay Brooklyn Club, started and run by Roger Mateo. Here is a sample of their models. The club has a quarterly magazine called Limited Editions. The second club is the Brooklyn Collectors Club, based in England, and started by Mike Marlowe. The magazine is called White Metal. The third club is in Germany and was started by Dietrich Lohmann. This is their first model. They too have a club magazine. The addresses of the three clubs are given at the end of the video. There are two publications of special interest to Brooklyn collectors. The Collector's Guides by John Hammick and David Angel contain detailed listings of the models and are illustrated in black and white. Published in 1988, the Brooklyn Collection by Vincent Roser and Paul J. Summers is a hardbacked book packed with interesting information and color photographs. Both are musts for the serious Brooklyn collector. That concludes Volume 3. A final word from John Hall.
As you came into our design office at the beginning of this video, you saw John Hammick and I discussing a new model. This is the new model, the first model for 1994, and it's a 1954 Hudson Italia. Very interesting car. A lot of American companies, to gain sales in the United States, tied in with Italian European companies to get a design change. And the Hudson Company tied in with an Italian design house to come up with this very unusual sports car. Problems were outrageous. The bodies were made in Italy, they were shipped to the United States, design was done here, the Americans weren't happy with this sort of comfort. So they built 26 models. But it's an interesting car. It was probably the last car that Hudson made and probably killed them off. Thank you for watching this video. We've enjoyed it, I hope you have, and maybe we'll see you in the future. Thanks.